Good morning, everyone. Salamat datang. Sawadee ka. Namaste. Bienvenue. Mabuhay. My name is Mabel, and I welcome you to our 17th session. In the interconnected world where global collaboration and diverse teams are the norm, understanding and navigating cultural nuances is critical more than ever. Just in this conference alone, if you have to look around you, we have participants from 20 different countries. Isn't that amazing? In just one room, 20 countries all in one room, right? So that's how we are globally interconnected. We are thrilled to have a speaker who will not only illuminate how to enhance communication across diverse backgrounds, but also empower you with the essential skills of cultural intelligence. Our esteemed speaker, Terence Clark, is an accomplished executive coach, trainer, and facilitator with 2 decades of experience in Asia. He's as a certified ICF PCC executive coach. He specializes in cultural intelligence, a field in which he developed AAA model of cultural intelligence. Terence brings a wealth of leadership because he worked with major companies like Apple, Nike, and Alibaba. He is a senior consultant of ITG World. He also co-founded Upskill Consulting and Epic Group, further demonstrating his commitment to developing high-performing individuals and teams. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Terence Clark.
Thank you very much.
Well done. So good afternoon, good morning, everybody. How are you all feeling? Good. So I appreciate the lunch is coming up. So if I could just get your attention for about 30 minutes, that would be great. Okay. And we'll leave some time for Q&A as well. So as Mabel said, 20 different nationalities, cultures, or is it 20 different nationalities or 20 different cultures are we talking about? Nationalities, right? Right. So when we talk about culture, what does that mean? What is culture? I'm only going to ask a few questions, don't worry. What is culture to you? What does it mean? Okay, growing up, how you grow up, right? What else? Practices and norms, yes. The way you do things, yeah. Language, right? Traditions, okay. So I'm from the UK. I'm an advantage. I barely speak English. Disadvantage, I barely speak English. Joking. But I've been in China for 20 years, so I work and I live in Chinese as well. And that's really informed my way of thinking, right? And I would guess in here, most people are speaking a minimum of 2 or 3 languages, right? Especially Malaysia, as it's normal. So I've been here for 5 days. I've been talking to taxi drivers. I've been talking to people in restaurants, switch between languages just like this. So your language is your culture. The way you work is your culture, and your personal experience is your culture as well. Now, importantly, culture is acquired. It's not genetic. Okay? So I had one of my first bosses many years ago, was called Chong Hu. He's from Holland. He's about this tall. Dr. Peter, I'm making a point, because I'm going to tell a story. He was about this tall, and I'm this tall. He grew up in Holland in the 1950s, did not speak any Chinese. Because at that time, his parents say, don't learn Chinese, you have to learn Dutch. You have to integrate. So he grew up completely Dutch. And we were in a factory in the far north of China many years ago with a big problem. We could not understand the factory boss he's from Jinan, couldn't understand his Mandarin. I'm translating from English to Chinese and back. And he was furious because he thought we were playing a joke. So he could not understand Chong's face was Chinese, but he couldn't speak Chinese. So this is the important thing about cultural intelligence. Now, I can't blame that gentleman. It was like 20 years ago, so I can't blame him for that. But we need to understand these things when we talk about culture, okay? So I wasn't going to tell that story, so I've lost my train of thought. No, I'm joking, I haven't lost my train of thought. So I've been privileged to be in China, APAC, for 20 years. And over that time, working with large companies across the whole region, and also on my CCMC with Dr. Peter, I developed the AAA model. So it's awareness, appreciation, and adaptation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Why is culture so important today in our workplace? Everybody is working with really interconnected global teams. I would say all of us are probably working with or talking to people from different cultures on a daily basis, right? Jose, you're living here now, right? Where are you originally from? Spain. Now you're living in Malaysia, and you're working with people from all over the world, right? This is why cultural intelligence is so important, especially when we have to think about one team could have people from Mumbai, from Tokyo, from Japan, all with their own cultural lens. So we can't just manage them in the same way, right? We have all these different aspects of culture. We have power distance, we have communication, indirect and direct, which is one of the biggest challenges I find in in Asia, is the different communication style. So somebody from Germany might be very direct, while somebody from Thailand might really favor that more, not so much confrontation, which can also get a bit frustrating for both sides, okay? So if we're looking here, some stats here, around 70% of IC, not complete companies, where about 70% of projects fail, that I've found in my own experience, from lack of cultural understanding. So why do we do it this way? Why do they do it that way? Why don't they adapt to me? I find this is the biggest challenge for a lot of people. So we're going to talk about my AAA model. It's not just a typical coaching methodology. It really focuses on culture. It really focuses on culture because I think that's what's important. Now, all coaching has value, 100%. Okay, but I find for myself, it helps me when I'm talking about culture, because I tend to be working with executives on both sides. So, for example, working with Chinese companies going to the UK, they tend to send a manager who's never worked outside China, but he understands the inner workings of the company. And maybe his English isn't so good. I don't talk about language too much because we all use English probably in different ways. And it's just about understanding each other, I think, right? But when we send somebody who's only worked in one country for their whole life and don't give them any training or any coaching, this is where problems happen. So we all know ByteDance, TikTok, right? So last year they tried to launch live stream sales in the UK, which people don't do. So they sent somebody from China, very, very big salary, around $1 million. And he lost his job before it started because he wrote an email about 3 ladies being on maternity leave. So maternity leave is enshrined in law in the UK. And he wrote it to the HR people in the UK. So he was pretty much called back immediately. So we need to understand local laws and culture and how to communicate with people as well, right? So what I find is organizations with cultural intelligence have around 35% increase in their performance because we're able just to get on with our work, all right? I do a lot of work with eBay in Shanghai, and the biggest challenge is Chinese people say they don't understand the Indian people say they don't understand the Chinese people. But it's a block in their head. They're all speaking the same way. I've been in the meetings with them. They can understand each other, but they have this cultural block where they're not from the same culture, they don't understand them. Now, we can't fix this overnight. We just have to be aware of the differences. So when I first went to China a long, long time ago, okay, I couldn't read, this is something off topic. I couldn't really read Chinese. And there was a bus, and I thought it was a Chinese character. It was actually a snowflake to say that the bus had air conditioning. So I just remembered it because I'm like, what does that say? It's a snowflake. So you have to be ready to adapt yourself and be aware when you go anywhere. So for example, in the UK, we'll probably be 15 minutes early, and that's on time. I found in my first meetings in China, everyone was arriving exactly at the right time, which is on time. But I would get frustrated, why haven't you set up? You know, linear time, we start on time, we finish on time, right? So we have to be really aware of these things. We can see that team collaboration, innovation, talent, retention, and adaptability really increase when we're culturally intelligent. So, what is the strategic imperative of cultural intelligence? Excuse me. As we can see here, this is working? Does it work? No. So if we look at the sources here, I've got some good data for you. ICF says 75% of coach leaders show significant improvement in cross-cultural communication. From Harvard Business Review, organizations with coaching cultures are 67% better at navigating cultural complexities, and 89% of global teams report reduced cultural misunderstandings after coaching interventions. So, as I said, coaching is incredibly powerful. I think we all know this. People have been coached, or people have had training, even the basic training. It's incredibly powerful. Oh, by the way, am I speaking too fast? Is it okay? Yes, it's too fast, or? No. Because so here's the thing. This is popped in my head. I went to Hong Kong at 21. My father was running a bar there, and he was older at that time anyway. And all of his staff spoke fluent English, I mean, really fluent English. And he would go, "What time can you work tomorrow?" And they go, 9 o'clock. Why? So that just popped into my head. So that's the reason I asked if I'm speaking too fast, because I'm maybe assuming too much that everyone speaks English. So I've not slowed myself down. So if I am too fast, please tell me. So I'm not being too culturally intelligent right now, right? But that's the amazing thing here. You know, switching between languages, like, you just grow up with it. It's brilliant. I wish we had that in the UK. So what does coaching do? It really creates a safe space for cultural exploration and for that learning, and through guided reflection, through the right type of coaching, through asking the right questions and allowing people to reflect. So this is my AAA model, my framework, which I'll go over in detail. So it's awareness, appreciation, and adaptation. So it took me, I was working on this for a long time and applying it. And then when I went through the CCMC with Dr. Peter, I really developed it. And thank you so much for the help, Dr. Peter, as well. So what this is, it looks very, very simple. And I think any model should be simple. I think we have to think of models in the power of three, because most people can only focus on three things at once. If you look at nearly every language, breakfast, lunch, dinner, yesterday, today, tomorrow, right? So this is a lot of languages thinking threes like this. So what it talks about is being aware, really unpacking your cultural lens. So there's a great phrase, and I don't know where it came from, but I include it in my trainings. And it's, we don't see the world as it is. We don't see the world as we think we do. We see the world as we are, right? So somebody said earlier traditions, somebody said the way we do things, right? So the way I do things is not the same way you will do things, and I have to be aware of that, especially if you're a leader. You can't expect people to maybe speak up in meetings. In some cultures, speaking up in a meeting, you might be knocked straight back down, or the boss might think you're challenging, right? In some cultures, silence is seen as you're not interested. But in other cultures, silence is seen as if you're thinking. So we just have to be aware of that. We can't adapt ourselves to every single person. I think now, I was talking to someone at Microsoft last week. She has 25 different countries in her team. 25, and they're all remote. So how do you adapt to that? You can't completely. You can try your best, right? Then we look at appreciation. So look at this diversity, this as a gift, right? Just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong, right? That's the most important thing. I mean, for me, I've been here for a few days, and it's so nice just to slow down. But I'm ready to go back to Shanghai, where everything's faster, because it's in me now. But everything here, it still gets done, but it's in a different pace. So we have to be aware of that as well. Then adaptation. So the adaptation is changing yourself, right? I've had countless people come to live in China. Why don't people speak English? Well, why don't you learn Chinese? Oh, it's impossible. I can't read and write. Well, don't learn to read and write. Learn to speak. You can, right? You can learn any language if you put your mind to it, right? You can adapt yourself. Like, in Shanghai, it's incredibly easy to get around. If it rains, take the metro. If it's a nice day, take a shared bike. Really, that adaptation is there, okay? And it's around the agility to really develop communication. I think that is the number one challenge that we have as people. With everything that's going on in the world, we have to be able to communicate with each other. Would you agree with that? Yes, thank you. I was hoping you would say that. So, so the model, it transforms coaching from a universal approach to more culturally intelligent. But actually, the model can be used for any type of coaching. But the way I developed it is it's for cultural intelligence, especially living in APAC and somewhere like Malaysia, it's a regional hub. Singapore's a regional hub as well. Can we communicate with each other? Can we get things done? Okay, especially with, I would say nowadays, more and more teams are remote. So that gives more challenge. Talking about Microsoft, I'm coaching there at the moment, and somebody was talking about how difficult it is for them to really create relationships with each other because nobody turns their cameras on. Can't see each other, right? So within communication, we have body language, voice, and words. Which percentage is higher? Which one is the biggest part, do you think? Body language, yeah? Pretty much universal. So what's the next one, words or voice? Voice, yes. So not how you say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? We've only had written language for about 6,000 years, right? So body language is super important. And when you can't see people, you don't know what's going on, right? Apart from some gestures, facial expressions, body language is pretty much universal. So when we can see each other, we can really adapt and understand what's going on. So let's look at pillar one. This is awareness. I nearly forgot what it was just then. Pillar one is awareness. This is being aware of your own culture. It's being aware of the culture of the people that you're working with, your clients, your teammates. So we talk about the culture of three, the power of three. So your personal culture, your national culture, and your company culture. And then if you're speaking another language, every language you speak, we can argue that there's a different culture there, right? The words that we use, the language we use. Talking about the power of three, there's a tribe in the Amazon that can only count to two. Recently discovered about 10 years ago, they only count to two because that's what they can carry. So everything, they can count up, but it's only in twos, right? So how do you express, how do you talk to somebody that's like this as well? So it's being aware of the power of three. So an example I always give, a friend of mine called Juan, Filipino, went to live in Australia about 15 years old. And he went to school there and he started working for Coca-Cola. So Filipino at home, his parents are speaking Tagalog to him. And he's eating the traditional food. At school, he's playing rugby. He's Australian. You know, there's barbecues, et cetera, and then he goes to work for an American company. So I said, what's your culture? What would you say his culture is? It's all of them. All of them at the same time. But he's acquired those. Not because he's born in the Philippines that he's completely Filipino, right? Get the verb right, sorry. Get the noun right. Everyone's got all of these pieces inside them that we don't see. You can't just see me and go, I'm from the UK. You can't just say, oh. Please don't say it. Nobody speaks like that. A challenge I have, what I love about being here in Malaysia, everyone's switching language and people just carry on speaking. So I'm in China 20 years. If I say one word in Chinese, who speaks Chinese? Okay, so don't embarrass myself. If I say, 你好, they say, 哇,你中文说得非常流利的. So say hello, they'll immediately go, I'm here for weddings and bar mitzvahs as well, don't worry. So what I said, if you don't speak Chinese, I said, hello, and someone will react, wow, your Chinese is really fluent. Because the mindset in mainland China, since 20 years of experience, is Chinese is too hard. How can you speak Chinese? So that's that shift you've got to do. If you come up to me in the UK, no matter what you look like, and you speak English, I'll just speak to you. So this is the shift we have to have. I mean, it's an outside perspective, but this is where awareness really, really comes to play. Okay? So we need to have that cultural awareness, making sure that the questions that we're asking within the coaching really reveal hidden color assumptions and biases. So the biases we have and the stereotypes, we all have them. Why do we have biases and stereotypes, you know? It's the brain's way of just making sense of the world, right? This person is different from me, so is it a threat or is it an opportunity? So it's just our ways of thinking. So we have to try and overcome these biases. It's not easy. I was going to show a video, but every time I show a video, it doesn't work when I'm presenting, so I didn't show it. but a very good video, and you can find it on YouTube, of an American guy and a Korean American lady running. I think, oh, where are you from? She says, from here. No, where are you from? What, before I was born? Right? And that's the assumption that they make, right? The world is just so connected now. Everyone is living everywhere. We can't have those assumptions, especially as leaders. You can't think, oh, this person from this culture maybe is going to turn up late. This person's not going to do their work, right? But when someone is frustrated with something or there's a challenge, we have to ask these questions. For example, okay, why were you upset about that person joining the meeting at exactly 10 a.m. rather than earlier? I won't go, there's lots of questions we can ask, but we have to ask the coachee these questions, and as a leader, we have to learn these questions so we can then coach our teams ourselves. Then we have to look at the cultural framework recognition. So we have to understand how our cultural dimensions really affect our communication styles. So I've got countless examples of this, and again, I'm not saying what's right or wrong, but I've been really frustrated over years about, for example, any questions? No? Great. What happens a week later? Come with a question, come with a challenge. Well, why didn't you ask me in the meeting? Well, because you're the leader and I shouldn't ask anything in the meeting. So what we have to do as part of this framework recognition is really develop a culture of feedback, or we can say psychological safety, really making people feel comfortable that they can come and ask you a question. They can come with an idea, and you don't have to agree with it, of course, but you're going to listen and go forward with it. Then we need to look at the communication pattern analysis. So what are our cultural influences from verbal and non-verbal communication, direct and indirect? 间接沟通 and 直接沟通. I won't speak any more Chinese. Okay, so we have to understand this, direct and indirect. Someone from the UK is probably going to tell you exactly what they think in the right way. Many parts of Asia, people aren't going to speak up, right? So we have to empower our teams to feel free to speak up and ask those questions and give the ideas, because if we don't get ideas from people, we're not going to succeed, right? As the leader, you don't know everything. And if you think you know everything, I'll tell you you're wrong as a leader, right? We have to take away that arrogance as well from ourselves. Okay, so if we look, pillar one, if we look at pillar two, this is appreciation. It's where we're leveraging diversity, right? So we have all these different cultures, we have all these different ideas, different ways of doing things. We have to leverage that, right? It's not a disadvantage, it's an advantage. So we have to look at our cultural differences and value them. So we need coaching conversations that reframe those cultural differences as complementary strengths. So I was working with a team in Japan and a team in Australia, and they were getting very frustrated with each other. So Japan it takes a lot, if you've worked with Japan, they take a long time to make an agreement, right? And it can go through a lot of hierarchy. So if you don't get an email back straight away, they're working on it, but they're not telling you. Well, the Australians were really fast and they wanted to get things done. So it was quite difficult for them to communicate because there was a lot of frustration. And through coaching intervention, we talked to them and we were able to then use the Japanese way of forming consensus and implementation and really reducing implementation issues. But with the really forthrightness, the speed of the Australians, we were still able to get them to get things to market quicker. So we try to really complement that, because that's all you can do, right? You can't just have it one way. Teams from McKinsey, teams with higher cultural appreciation are 45% more innovative and creative. And culturally diverse teams make better decisions 87% of the time when coached to appreciate differences. And I think this is the challenge we have as leaders, even as people. We don't really coach each other or talk to each other about our differences. And that is, it's the brain's way of trying to make sense of things. You just have to be aware of yourself. You have to appreciate these things, right? Again, in a nutshell, just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. And you have to open your mind to that, okay? The next pillar is adaptation. So we have to be agile. We have to be able to move quickly, especially nowadays, right? Everything is changing. AI, every day things are changing. I personally feel people who are culturally intelligent or with high emotional intelligence, people that can communicate, those are the ones who are going to have the jobs in this new era, the industrial era of AI, to be able to communicate with each other. And that's where coaching really comes in, right? As coaches, we're very good communicators. As educators, as trainers, we're very good, well, we should be very good communicators. So if we can do that and help people come out of their shells maybe, or communicate in a different way, I think that is just business gold going forward, okay? So we need to develop the ability to adjust communication style based on the cultural context. So should you be direct, should you be less indirect? If two cultures are indirect, what's the best way for them to communicate? Directly. Really? Because then there's no gray area there, right? But it's how you do it. It's how you do it. It's how you're saying it, not the words, right? And I'm not saying go in and speak in Bahasa Malay, if you can do it in English, do it in English. But really think about how you're communicating with people. Really be conscious of it. That's the important part here. And leaders with high adaptation skills are 3 times more effective in multicultural teams. I was working with a German executive a few years ago, and he was in Thailand. He was very, very direct, very, very direct. And he felt that people were maybe closed off to him a little bit. And he wasn't like shouting. He had a very strong accent, and the way he spoke was quite strong. So he worked on softening the way he's speaking, and then understanding that as the leader in a hierarchical society, people are not going to push back to him. So he has to build that sort of culture of feedback and openness. We worked together for a couple of months, and he found that those new skills actually helped him communicate back with Germany as well, and help Germany to understand how it works in Thailand. I worked for a company years ago in sales, and they wanted us to do every sales event the same way across China. So China is enormous, right? So they wanted it, what you do in Shanghai, you do in Beijing, you do in Guangzhou. Can't do it. Can't do it. And it was from London, they were very close-minded. I said, it's not around Cantonese and Mandarin Shanghainese. In Shanghai, people want to go, they want the sales thing in a nice hotel like this. You've got like booths up and things like that. Beijing want to go for dinner, right? We were selling very high-end properties. So the clients in Beijing didn't want people seeing them. They didn't want a public event. They wanted 5 to 10 people having dinner together, which really worked. But the fight back, the pushback with the UK was crazy because, well, in Hong Kong, where we've done all our sales over the years, all the hotels is hired out over the weekend, and there's millions of dollars of sales done. This is not Hong Kong. Shanghai is not Beijing. Beijing is not Guangzhou. We need to understand this. The whole of Malaysia is not the same, right? People think differently in different regions, right? The whole of the UK is not the same. I said about the bottle of water, right? So I've been out here a long time. People say, you don't have a British accent. So what's a British accent? How many accents in the UK do you know? And dialects? How many? Have a guess. How many? One? But no. 44. 44. If you go to places like the Cumbria, people are still speaking parts of Norman French and Viking as well, right? So you can't, my point is here, you can't just say everyone from this culture is this way. That's the lens we look at it. Because it's our biases. It's the way of just making sense of the world, okay? So coaching for adaptation increases successful cross-cultural negotiations by 70%. I've seen in many years in China, negotiations just fall down because just the cultural nuances. Why are these people not saying yes? So if I say to you in English, I'll think about it, or I'll consider it. It's quite positive, right? It's about how you say it. If you say in Chinese, I will consider it. It's no, right? But, oh, he said maybe. So it's understanding these things, these little nuances as well, right? So this is talking about my 20 years. Oh my goodness, I've shot my age. So 20 years in APAC. Here's just some examples of real-world applications for the AAA model. So a Japanese Korean financial firm. We've got to remember that culture isn't like bowing in Japan and name cards in Korea or handshakes in the UK. That's part of it, but that's not what culture is all about. So here with the Japanese Korean financial services firm, people think, oh, very similar cultures, right? People assume they're similar cultures, but they're not. That's the problem. Everyone also here, I find in China, people think everyone in Europe is the same. We may look the same, but we're not the same. So the Japanese and Korean financial firm services, they just couldn't communicate properly with each other. I mean, I think there's a bit of animosity there as well, but they couldn't, because both very indirect cultures. They really struggled to be like, well, you haven't got back to me. Well, if it's 3 weeks and I didn't say no, then assume it's a no, because I want to keep that harmony going. But what we did, we talked about really the hierarchical communication styles. So it's a big struggle for both cultures. Japan, even more so. But in the end, it took 3 or 4 months. We saw about a 65% improvement in cross-border collaboration. So it's difficult to quantify that, but we just did a survey. So is it better? Because it's difficult to quantify. With Singapore, a technology multinational, we developed a coaching culture within quite a small team, but it was across 7 different countries. It was about 25 people in the team, where the leader was actually from Singapore, and the rest of the people are dotted everywhere. And their biggest challenge there was, how do we communicate directly with each other? Because this was their struggle. Some people didn't like emails, some people didn't like Slack, some people didn't like Teams. So we just tried to work on the way that they could all really be comfortable communicating with each other. And then again, with Australia and China, so this was a very interesting one. The Chinese, again, are very cautious, again, consensus, very much like the Japanese. And then the Australians are quick. It's the same sort of example where we work together to make sure that, well, let's take this from here and let's take this from here and build the best path forward. Okay. I'm happy to share these slides with anyone that wants them as well afterwards. So how do we build a culturally intelligent coaching culture? And again, the model can be used for any type of coaching. Excuse me, but how do we do this? So here's the framework for implementation. Step 1 is cultural intelligence assessment. Step 2 is coach the coaches, and step 3 is integrate that cultural intelligence. So you've got to measure the cultural intelligence, and I have a framework for that as well across the culture. This works in real multinationals and also smaller teams. If you're an entrepreneur and you're working with people globally, you also need to understand how to communicate with them, right? We can't forget the smaller teams as well. We then have to coach the coaches, which ITD World can help with, of course. Train internal coaches in culturally intelligent coaching methodologies. Now, there's so many coaching frameworks out there. There's so many just different systems of doing things. So we have to train those coaches on how to integrate aspects of it, not completely, because as a coach, you still have your own style, right? Then we need to embed the cultural intelligence into all coaching conversations and leadership development. So this is what's very important. I try to, any sort of training we do, I try to put some elements of culture in there, because I'm lucky enough to work with some very large companies, so it's multinational. So even if we're doing presentation skills, then you still have to be able to adapt how to speak to people from different cultures. What do people want to see? If we're doing around sort of mindset, if we're doing growth mindset, things like that, we also have to be culturally informed in how to communicate that to people. And then it's really making sure that we understand that organizations with culturally intelligent coaching culture report 75% higher cross-cultural team effectiveness, 68% talent retention. I've seen lots of people leave companies over culture, around communication, around how the way things are done. I'll give you a very good example on different cultures within one country. So do you know in China, 996? Do you know this culture of just working, 996, right? So it's basically working all day, every day. So been working with eBay now for 3 years. Every one of their engineers has come from a Chinese company. Every one of them, Huawei or Alibaba. And they go into eBay, which is American, but in China. Very different way of doing things. They're like, the money is less, but I have a life. So we have to understand this. People coming from where it's purely get it done, get it done. And a lot of them found it very hard to adapt to the way eBay was working when they came in. Now, eBay China's the general manager, the managing director is Chinese, so of course they know what they're doing in terms of culture, but everything comes from the States. So that work-life balance is important to them. And there's even people that, so Shanghai's enormous. There's people that travel 90 minutes each way on public transport every day because they're happier to work there than for that 996 culture. And just a story just popped into my mind. One of the first sessions I did, and it was on communication, a gentleman's name was Tom now, and he was complaining that every Thursday morning at 7 a.m., he has a meeting with the US. And he's very frustrated about it. I said, well, why don't you say something? I can't say something. I said, is the person senior to you? No, same level. I said, if the person is senior to you, it shouldn't matter anyway. I said, but let me ask you this. Is this the conversation you had when he asked you about this meeting? He said, Tom, now, are you available in the office every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. from Thursday morning for 7 a.m.? Yes. He said, how did you know that? How did you know that? You didn't go back to him and say, do I have to be in the office because I have a laptop? And did you go back and say, can we alternate the days? No. Ask him next meeting. Next time I saw him, he was so happy. He said, I don't need to come to the office anymore for that meeting, and we're going to alternate it. But from his cultural understanding was the person, even though he wasn't senior, he was more senior. And he didn't want to go back and create any issues. So if we can really help people to come out of the shells and communicate both ways, it's magic. You see people they light up, people are happier, they're more productive, and business overall is just better. So, your role as a leader. What is your role as a leader? To transform your organization, you need to assess, you need to implement, and you need to make it a really strategic priority. I'm not going to read through the whole slide for you. This is how you implement it. And we'll have time for Q&A actually as well. Right, so we need to evaluate, we need to be aware, we have to appreciate, and we need to adapt. Okay? Especially the way the world is moving now. And then really think about your team building, your organizational values. How do we put culture in there? Not just a company value that's just lip service. Right? We need something where we're actually integrating culture into our everyday work. So we can see with the transformative impact, it increases our market adaptability, talent retention, innovation, creativity, team collaboration, and global leadership. Particularly from a China context, the sort of cultural lens in China. Years ago, people would 2 years, and jump companies. Now we're seeing 6 months, 5 months, 7 months. People are jumping. A lot of it's for culture. A lot of it is around work-life balance. A lot of it is, of course, around salary. But things are changing. And when you're culturally intelligent, when you're offering talent development, when you're really looking after people, this is where your talent retention stays. So it costs about 6 times more to hire someone than to retain them. On average, I think it could be different numbers as well. Okay, so that's my presentation, everybody. This is my couple of websites. That's my WhatsApp. It's my WhatsApp if anyone wants to add me, my email, etc., etc. So thank you very much. And we're going to open the floor for questions. There's 5 minutes before lunch. Sorry. So let's open the floor for questions if anybody has any.
Any questions? Thank you, Terence, for telling us about the AAA. So we have to remember we have to be aware, appreciate, and adopt. Okay, any questions? Yes, sir.
Terence, one question from me. Perhaps any tips for leaders managing different culture? How do we maintain authenticity? Meaning, how does a leader adapt to different cultures while remaining authentic to his or her own values and leadership style?
That's a really good question. What's your name, sorry?
Kalis.
Kalis, thank you. That's a really good question. One thing that I should have said in the presentation is when you're adapting culturally, it's not about changing yourself. Your culture is equally as important as anybody else's, but it's adapting to those different people. We're not saying become a chameleon, right? Somebody said that to me recently, become a chameleon. I don't think that's authentic. I think what you have to try and do depends on the size of your team. It depends if they're reporting directly to you or you've got reports below you. It's a huge challenge, right? And I don't think it's possible to adapt to everyone. But if you're actually putting in people that work for you or report to you that can, maybe cover different regions, that really helps as well. But it's the awareness, I think, is the biggest, the most powerful thing there. is being aware of these different cultures, trying to manage. I mean, I'll give you an example. It wasn't one of my clients. I can't remember which company it was, but there was a global company, and they wanted to do everything the same across every region. And they put into maybe it was Singapore or somewhere, take your child to work day. And they implemented it in China, and everyone was furious. Furious because, one, you're not allowed to take your kid out of school. It's impossible. You can't do it. If you do, then I'm not wasting that money. It costs a fortune to send my kid to school. And it was just, they thought they were doing something right, but there's huge pushback. So try to make your policies flexible within each region, right? And try to just, as yourself, as that leader, just it's the awareness, I would say, Carlos, is the most important thing. Did that answer your question? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question? Oh, wait, we have 2 hands.
Well, we can have more, but you want to go for lunch?
Thank you, Darren. That was really insightful.
Thank you.
When we look at cross-cultural communication or interaction, normally we reference ethnic culture,
Yes.
Conflicts, and flashpoints.
Right.
But there's another dimension, and that is corporate culture.
Yes.
So if you layer that on, you have the ethnic culture and then the corporate culture, which may or may not be totally representative of their headquarters.
Yes.
And then, of course, you from another country or another company. So how do you, in your experience, reconcile ethnic culture, corporate culture, and your own organization?
For me personally, I think it's extremely difficult to to sort of reconcile corporate culture with anything. Personally, because you look at the slogan and these sort of things, the corporate culture honestly is to make money. Right, that's what we're here for. That's what I personally think, and that's not a bad thing at all. But it's very hard. I mean, we did an exercise. We just did a 2-day workshop, personal branding, executive presence, on finding your values, and then how do they work with the company values. And I think often there's a clash. And then, of course, you've got the sort of ethnic sort of challenges as well. And I think if you're operating in Malaysia, or if you're operating in Singapore, you're operating in the UK, you can have your overarching company culture, but you have to adapt to that locality. You must. It's adapt or die. All right. You can't. What works in the UK does not work in China. Completely does not work in China. I often joke that I could not go back to work in London because it's too slow. I've been in China too long. It's too slow. They take too long to make decisions. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but for me, in my mind now, it's like boom, boom. It's so fast out here, and I enjoy it. So it's a good question, and I think it's something we could debate for a long time. But personally, for me, I think it's very difficult to reconcile that corporate culture, because the corporate culture is to make money, but you must adapt it within each region. Did that answer your question? Sort of.
Sort of, because corporate culture comes
What's your opinion?
So to me, making money is not a culture; it's a objective.
Right.
But the style of how you get to make money.
Right.
Then, like you say, some companies are very straightforward.
Yes.
Fast and speed. Some companies are a little bit more considered, like, for example, family-based companies as opposed to, a more global company. So that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, yes, and I totally agree with you there as well. I mean, I would argue with you in China, the goal is to make money. That's why I would argue there, maybe not everywhere else, right? No, because you see companies there, they'll grow overnight and then they're gone, and they just keep trying again. So in a global context, yes, it's very much different. That's why we need that cultural intelligence. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You can have last question here again.
Thank you very much. My name is Daniel. I'm from South Sudan.
Nice to meet you, Daniel.
Thank you. My question is more or less the same with what he's asking. For instance, the world is two dynamics.
Yes.
You have norms, traditions, and different cultures across the globe. How do you integrate the organizational or corporate norms and traditions with the cultural norms of the society where we are operating?
Okay, very, very interesting. And I would ask you the same question from the continent of Africa. How many cultures there? How many languages there? Right? How many languages do you speak?
I do speak 3 languages in person. And in South Sudan, we have 64 tribes.
Right.
Yeah, with their own norms, including the type of food they are eating.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, and then you just grow up speaking those languages and you don't think about it, right? Because you just grow up speaking them and it's normal for you. Now, for a company to integrate locally, you can't just go, this is how we do it in the UK, this is how we do it in China. You have to adapt as much as you can. So making sure that national holidays, local traditions, special days off, things like this are integrated, and the way of people working. If people, maybe if you look at the country of Oman, right? Long time ago, they used to start work at 5 a.m., work until about lunchtime when it was super, super hot, like 40, 50 degrees, and then come back around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Very traditional businesses still do that in Oman, but the international companies that are there as well, they're doing their typical 9 to 5. But then when it comes to Ramadan and things like this, then they're following that as well. So there's adaptation there as well. And not everyone locally is going to want to change to that style. But you have to have a style where you're doing your business. So you have to, Dubai just changed, didn't it? Dubai changed from the Friday off, right? So they can now have the same markets as international. So Dubai actually changed the way they're doing things. So it's top down, right? You've got to have that, you've got to have the buy-in, and you've got to explain to your team why you're doing it, right? Simon Sinek, start with why. You can't just say this is what we're doing. You have to, from top down, explain it to people and try and integrate as much as you can. But at the end of the day, you can't integrate everything, I think, because it's a business. Did that answer your question, Ben?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I think it's lunchtime. You're going to come on and get me off? You're going to drag me off? Going to drag me off?
Just stay there, Ernst. On behalf of Ardo, we would like to present to you this token of appreciation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And a big thank you to Mabel as well. Mabel did such a good job at the introduction. Thank you. I told you, no need to be nervous, right? Thank you so much, everybody. Let's go and enjoy some lunch.